So this is the Focalizing workshop series. Focalizing was created by Dr. Michael Picucci. His picture's there. He was my long-term mentor, friend. We became very close, and he passed away a few years ago. This is me, actually. I presented his funeral ceremony at the Open Center where we used to teach together. We also had the experience of teaching at the Crossroads in Antigua for a week, which is Eric Clapton's Center for Abuse and Addiction Applications. And so we were lucky enough to be asked to go down and present at Crossroads. And I got to meet Eric Clapton at the event, and that was really special. So Michael and I both got to meet him, and I helped write a book together with him called The Evolution of Focalizing. Focalizing is a way to increase consciousness, access, and awareness of source energy. And it can be used for healing. It can be used for creativity. It can also be used for increasing your effectiveness in life. I know when I started focalizing with Michael, what it did for me was it allowed my intuition to feel safely accepted by me to the point that I could utilize it, which is now what I use in my private practice. But for other people, focalizing might elicit more creativity. You might be going back into painting from when you were a kid, or find some sort of form of creative expression that you didn't have, or a sense of self-awareness, creating more boundaries, feeling better in your body. Focalizing can have a lot of different nuanced effects for people. A little bit of my background: I've been doing focalizing trainings for 15 years. 10 years I've been an intuitive healer. I have a podcast. Most of you already know me, but my clients call me the energetic plumber. At Ghostbusting, you can see on the right, I was featured in the Wall Street Journal for clearing energy. Focalizing has influenced my practice in that I'm the energetic plumber with my clients. I have Coming Out Intuitive, which is teaching people about self-acceptance of their own intuition and feeling more comfortable, not only with themselves, but with what they're able to sense. And that also brought up somatic semantics, and that's about creating safe ways to speak to your body and to feel better in your body by communicating with it efficiently. So one of the mainstays of focalizing is to create a shared intention. And so one thing that Michael used to stress is that focalizing is about healing in community. So there's more than just one person experiencing this. Even if there's just two of us with the focalizer and the focalizee, that creates a felt sense or a resonance just between the two of us or the group. As example here tonight, this is a group. So this healing in community is a shared intention. And so I would like us all to say out loud, I share the intention to create clarity and healing for today. So just state that out loud when you're ready.
I share the intention to create clarity and healing today.
Great. And so if we all have that communal shared intention, then some of the exercises we will do will create a shared intention of clarity and healing. So one of the aspects of focalizing is about source energy and our connection to source energy. And one of the aspects of source energy that blocks us is conditioned thinking. Conditioned thinking is societal pressures, churches, principles, being teased as a kid, not feeling able to self-express. A lot of times, if you were teased for dancing, for example, then that's more of yourself not allowing it, where conditioned thinking would be if your church didn't allow dancing, then you're not allowed to dance because some external pressure is pushing down on it. And that can really block your access to source energy, which is that connection of the way things could energetically say are supposed to be, or the way they're intended. And then we get in a way to malign some of these intentions. Another block of source energy is unresolved traumas, things that happened to us before the age of 7 in our subconscious, or things after the fact, after the age of 7, when our subconscious is formed. Those unresolved traumas end up in our bodies and sometimes in our psyches and create a barrier to source energy, or feeling your own innate intelligence, as Michael would call it. The other aspect is sexual barriers, or the off-toggling of the yin-yang, lingam-yoni energies. Those can have a real sort of maligning effect too. If you aren't comfortable in who you are self-expressing, either with your throat chakra or your mouth or communication skills, but also with your own desires and what you desire as a person. And that can be a sexual desire as well as just a basic desire of what you intend out of your life. And if those intentions aren't being met, then you're somehow blocking source energy from there. So why is somatic healing techniques different than talk therapy? I see talk therapy as trying to water a flower from above and seeing if it permeates, whereas I feel like somatic healings and these kind of energies actually brings the energy or the healing up through the roots, so it can permeate the whole organism. Whereas if you just talk therapy is more superficial, and so it's less likely for the talk therapy to get through to these inner channels that become clogged, crimped, or coagulated, right? Another aspect of focalizing is accepting the existing realities while engaging opposite energies. Now, this is a lot of the concept, and I'll talk about this more next week. But the principle here is engaging opposite energies. Yellow and blue make green in theory, but I'll show you later that they can create something new. But if you have a blocked energy and a desirous energy and they're polarized, then you can't meet in the middle of that polarization. And the neutral state is where the body becomes able to absorb not only the existing reality, but the idea that change can happen or that change can be unfolded. One way to do that is to take sort of a negative thought and mix it or counteract it with a positive thought. A lot of times, a positive thought we call a resource moment. So, this resource moment here on the screen is just an idea of something in your life when things went well, when things felt like they were going well, right? Accepting existing realities allows us to see what is changeable. What do I mean by that? A lot of us say, oh, I want this to be different. Well, you wanting to have a different reality than the one that exists just creates more wanting, right? So if you want to change something, it's elusive. If you accept what it is, then it's allowed to be changeable. But if you want it to be different, then you're keeping it at a distance and it disallows it from shifting out of your own existence. So if you accept, I am in this position, or I put myself in this position, then you can find a resolution. And the brain, allowing it to mix with a resource moment, can find that energy that takes the contraction away and allows either for more release or, as I said, for that needle to go in the center, not polarized to one side or the other. We don't want to be too far on one side or too far on the other side, because then we're off balance. And if you add the existing reality to your off balanceness and engage a positive energy to a negative, then you're more likely to become neutralized or in the center. Your inner compass and self-compassion is another aspect of focalizing. And what that does is allows you to forgive. Forgiveness is a key factor in focalizing. So if you accept who you are in the condition that you're in, and then you forgive yourself for how you got there, your self-compassion is increased, and your inner compass is allowed to, as I said, turn that needle towards healing or towards that self-esteem, which is essentially what we're searching for in healing energy. And that's something that came about for me when I was doing the work, is forgiving how we got here and then accepting the existing reality. Once you do that, change becomes more efficient. So one thing we're going to do in focalizing that we often do is engage the curious observer. Now, instead of just talking about what that means, we're going to actually do what that means. So the curious observer in this case, we're going to observe our breath. So don't do it yet, but just respirating is in and out and in and out. So we're not going to force or change the breath in any way. So everyone close your eyes. Great. And now I'm going to ask you to just curiously observe your breath. Do not change it. Do not force it. Just observe the respiration in your body. And for a lot of us, you would have had a large regulating breath about 40 seconds in. It's a big breath that it just happens automatically. And that's your body being curiously observed. And as you observe the breath without changing or forcing it, it allows it to change. It sends a signal to your nervous system that change is acceptable. And when you're ready, put your hand to your chest. And then just come back into the room. In just observing the breath curiously without changing it, then you're not bringing judgment in. One thing that came out of focalizing for my work is joy and judgment cannot live in the same moment. And so for me, being the curious observer allows you to relinquish judgment that our society is almost built on these days and just accept the existing reality from a curious standpoint. And the more curiosity we can bring to ourselves, the more opportunity you would have for joy, as opposed to if you observe yourself without curiosity and you observe yourself either with judgment or from other people's judgment, then you're taken out of the innate intelligence connection. You're too preoccupied with what might be going on in your psyche. And that preoccupation takes you out of the moment. So this is the question that changed my life. I met with Michael, I think it was the first time I ever met with him. And he asked me, how does your body feel? And boy, did I not want to express how my body felt. Why would they ask me that? And that's how much I was not in my body. So just now, everyone's muted. Just ask yourself out loud, how does my body feel? And curiously observe what it tells you. And one of the aspects of doing that, of asking your body, how does it feel, is going into what Michael called the body drop. I call it trust falling into yourself. The body drop, dropping into your body, asking it how it felt, it allows us to start the focalizing process. So now just in whatever capacity you can think of, drop into your own body. Either hunker your energy into your pelvis, in your thighs, in your feet. Where do you feel that sense of presence might be most beneficial? And drop into your body. And in doing that, you are allowed to curiously observe your interior conditions. What sensations are you feeling? What images come up? And observing that curiously without judgment. And if you have a pain somewhere in your body, go inside that pain. Ask it, what is it doing there? What does it want to be noticed for? What is it might be taking away from you? Is it draining your energy to have that ache or that pain or that resistance? And just drop into the interior of it and see if it has any messages for you. And whatever messages come up, just listen with curiosity. And take a breath. And once again, put your hand on your chest and just come back in the room. So the body drop, once again, is one of the integral parts of the focalizing process, is changing out of whatever state you're in and starting to notice what's going on with your energy. This is something that, once again, folds into my new work, but this is a very good aspect of focalizing, is noticing the energy flow. notices the energy coagulated somewhere for a reason? Is it flowing too fast? Is it slow? Are you not grounding through one foot versus the other? Just curiously notice the flow of energy or the lack of flow of energy in any specific body part, for example, particularly when you do that body drop, or you ask yourself, how does my body feel? It really is a very potent question. And if asked in the right mindset, it can really help you to discern, I would say, what might be happening with you and your body's energies. So focalizing has 7 conditions to it. It's more just about being respectful of yourself, of the others, and once again, of the existing realities. Trying to hold space for a reality that you want is not going to help you in your life and not going to help you, particularly during a focalizing session. So we accept the existing realities, and in accepting them, they are allowed to shift. That means including being real. As I said, healing in community, that can be even 2 people. But the aspect of healing a community that I like to stress is that you're being seen. It's the strength of vulnerability, not the weak part of vulnerability. That if you allow yourself to fall into a body drop with a practitioner, with someone else, and be seen, then you're offering the universe saying, I'm willing to change, that these energies are shiftable because I'm allowing myself to be seen. We shared that same intention. And with intention comes belief, or what I say, the guardian of faith. And this is when you share a belief. If I believe you can heal yourself and you believe you can heal yourself, then that power becomes more powerful than just the 2 of us. It creates a third, more powerful energy. If we share the same belief that focalizing or body dropping or you being more connected to your innate intelligence will create sort of resource for you. So another condition of focalizing is grounding through resource. And this is a really important discussion, and we'll talk more about it next week. But a resource is an ability for you to either relate to or imagine a time in your life that was amiable to you, that was effective or conducive or felt wonderful. And feeling these resources, or a time you felt esteemable or you accomplished something, even micro wins can be a resource. But using something in your past that's affirming and holding that as not just a litmus test, but as a grounding station of saying, I can achieve this more often than not. If you find a memory in your body that you remind yourself, oh, I remember that day, the sun was shining, I felt great in my body, then your body remembers how that feels and your cells remember how that feels. And if you can ground the process of focalizing in a resource moment, finding something esteemable to relate to, then that's going to help sort of make the focalizing experience not just more efficient, but I would say more effective. And one way to make it more effective also is no shame, no blame, right here, right now. This is one of Michael's favorite expressions. So you're all muted, but just say out loud, no shame, no blame, right here, right now. And this applies to you. It applies to other people in situations that you might have situations with, people that are annoying you or family members. Accept it, not putting shame or blame on the situation, particularly yourself, but either on other people, allows the situation to unfurl itself and not be so contracted or wrapped around it. And if you're right here, right now, in the moment, then once again, you're really striving to accept the existing realities. So releasing yourself of shame and releasing blaming of yourself and others will really help align with the focalizing experience. So an interesting role of the focalizer versus the focalizee, and in this case, the person experiencing the focalizing session is going to be on the right in this bubble. The difference between this and maybe psychic healing or energy healing, why are they different? They're different because anyone can do focalizing. Focalizing is a technology that Michael created, and he called it a somatic technology because it's replicatable. Yes, I use many aspects of focalizing in my work on a daily basis. Sometimes I use all 9 aspects of focalizing. Sometimes I only use 2. But I reflex cast this. I've been doing it so long that it's instinctive which aspect of focalizing I bring into the session. But anyone can be a focalizer, and anyone can generally be focalized. Well, almost anyone. But the aspect that I really enjoy about this is it's replicatable, and that makes it what Michael considered a technology. It's replicatable because you can follow a certain process that we'll go into briefly in a little bit. But what happens is the person experiencing the session and the individual holding the session can each have their own experiences. And it's contained within the focalizing bubble, or it's, let's say, if they're in the room you're focalizing in, the room creates a resonance. And the person guiding the experience maintains their own objective and observing energy, and they observe the individual. What they don't do is commingle their energies. So this is not about the will of the person exerting the energetic will on someone else to change them. What the focalizer, or what the person doing the session is helping the person receiving the focalizing session do is to hold space for them in observation of their experience. It is not about pushing or exerting their empathy or their desires onto the individual. So the energies stay separate, but what happens is they're curiously observed. So the facilitator holds space for the focalizer to connect to their own innate intelligence. As the person observes, as the facilitator observes the focalizer, their state can change and the focalizer's innate intelligence can come through. And if you've ever done work with me or a focalizing session, sometimes it really can feel like these spirally circles of energy are going through our bodies. When you get into a state of release and a state of connection, then you really can feel your chi flow through you. And it's a wonderful thing to behold from the facilitator standpoint, but it's actually, more wonderful to experience it from the person's being focalized. So that being said, let's do a meeting yourself exercise. And this is a aspect of focalizing. Next week, we're going to do a full focalizing session incorporating all 9 aspects of it. Today, I'm only going to incorporate a few, and we'll talk about that after this experience. So what we're going to do is we're going to evoke the childhood imagination. So you can just say out loud, I give my body permission to evoke my childhood imagination. And I allow my body to evoke my childhood imagination. And with your eyes closed, imagine you're sitting in a theater looking at an empty stage. And on that stage is you currently, as you are today, in your own experience, in your own body. Just project a version of you up on the stage as you are currently today. Good. Once you see that person, just let them move over to the side of the stage, just a little bit to the side of the stage. Now in the center of the stage, place a version of you, say 18 months from now, after doing the clearing or getting the job or whatever your intention is that you might set for yourself. See yourself as that intention is already beheld. You might be standing more upright or glowing differently, and just place yourself now side to side. And as you see yourself as 2 different individuals, one as you are and one as sort of you intend, allow them to move together closer to the center of the stage and ultimately touch. As they touch, they can maybe merge into one another. Allow those 2 energies to conjoin into something new. Feeling the energies envelope into each other, creating a third energy, or even a new version of yourself. And now imagine this new version of yourself grounding back into your body, dropping into your own body. And open your jaw. Breathe through your nose. Bring your hand to your chest. And come back into the room. Would anybody like to comment on their experience? Marianne? Or is it Marion?
Hi, hi.
Hi. It's just a few
My
words of what you may have experienced.
it was interesting. Went very deep because I know that when there's places where I almost lose consciousness, it feels like the two merged really closely together. And it's like, oh, where am I? So even though I was aware and I was curious, the energy was deep and felt a little. Well, I don't know what the word is. Maybe felt a lot sort of like the two did really merge together, and there was no sense of I as such.
Nice. Yes, that is your innate intelligence sort of conjoining. That's great.
Yeah, it was
Thank you.
beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Um, part of, excuse me, oops. Part of that experience, did anyone, when the two bodies touched, did any of you see a third energy that came out? Animal, a bright light? Was there a third energy? Sometimes if a third energy comes out when the polarizing energies connect, that energy, the third energy, if it's a noun, for example, like an ice cream cone or a merry-go-round, that can have an insight into your inner psyche. And if you do focalizing or you do these opposing energies exercises that we're going to talk about in a little bit, and you do see a third energy come out as opposed to just them conjoining, that can be your subconscious's lighthouse. So if you do see a third energy, keep reminding yourself of what that third energy is over the course of the next few days, because that's really like a placating energy for your psyche. So I'm going to go over this very briefly and then do a recap of 4 of the 9 aspects of focalizing. And then next week, we'll talk about the other 5 before we do a full focalizing session next week. So the aspects and the structure of focalizing. The first one is intention. Now, I want to say first one, but I don't mean this in any specific order. One of the things that Michael and I worked on was he showed me these 9 things, and I sort of kept explaining to him that they're less linear than he was giving them credit for. The old therapy model from the 70s and 80s was to keep everything linear, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But these can be processed in any order. You don't have to follow a specific order 1 through 9. So we share an intention or create an intention for where the energy can be. It's a potentiality. Then we have suspension, and that is essentially just suspending reality, suspending judgment, suspending conditioned thinking, those things we talked about earlier, suspending what might be limiting you in the moment so you can actualize the focalizing experience and have a moment that permeates like Marion just had. If you suspend your issues of the day, for example, So suspension of conditioned thinking, of judgment, the critical voices in your mind or your head, and personal or cultural criticisms. Definitely what I talked about is conditioned thinking. That's fears or fear of retribution or judgment from other people. Suspending those can really help facilitate the focalizing process. And it definitely is one of the 9 points. One of them, as you sensed earlier, is sensing your body, maybe sensing the energy around you. If you're visualizing something during your focalizing session, sensing how either your body reacts or the people in your vision react or the environment. So it's not just about sensing inside your body, but the person facilitating can sense what's happening with the person focalizing. And also the person focalizing can have an inner sense, not just the 5 senses of sight, sound, touch, and smell, but what does it feel like in your body again? You know, as I go back to that original question, how does my body feel? Well, sensing is going to give you an answer to that question. Imaging or imagining, I like to call it the creative imagination or the childhood imagination. And if you use imagery, then your subconscious is more likely and more prone to tack on to this story as opposed to just willing it or thinking it. So using imaging and imagination is somewhat crucial to the process. The next is resourcing. As I said, using a resource moment, or I am able to feel joy, or feeling joy momentarily and using that as a resource moment, or a time you felt loved, or a time you felt supported, right? So resourcing is finding a resource in your mind or your past and bringing that forth into the present to help it shift you out of whatever mindset you're in. Once again, engaging opposite energies. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. These can shift and change, and it creates new energies when 2 energies interact with each other. Shifts of perception or experience. So once the process either starts or before even as it's happening, you're going to start shifting a perception of what's actually happening. As Marion said, she went somewhere else and came back. So that shift of perception can actually reset the nervous system and reset the subconscious to the degree that you can actually have a change. That shift in perception says, wow, I'm going to stop limiting myself because I brought this new energy in. I'm not going to feel as contracted, or I'm not going to perceive my body as contracted as much as it was because of the focalizing experience, or because of whatever new energies you were able to infuse. And that shifts you out of whatever perspective you have into a new, cleaner, fresher, crisper perspective. Or it can have a shift in that experience and say, oh, that used to be a negative experience. Now it's only neutral. Well, if you keep reliving something that's a negative experience because of a personal trauma and you do a focalizing experience and it becomes neutral, then it doesn't affect your nervous system as dramatically. So that shift in perspective or perception, as I said, shifts you out of a doldrummy negative mindset and can shift you up into a more affirming or esteemable mindset. One that I really enjoy, and this is more after the fact, but there's a soulful integration to the energies. So I displayed it this way because the soulful integration, the energy here is outside of this woman's body. It's tangible, but it's still outside of her body. And what I perceive of as a soulful integration is that energy now you get drawn, the affirming or esteemable energy gets drawn into your own soulful experience. So as opposed from it being outside and having it be an exterior experience, you can actually have an innate experience or an ingrown soulful integration of the energies. And as I said, soulful integration is one of the aspects. And one of the final ones is physical manifestation, whether that's taking energy and creating matter, whether that's shifting the matter in your body, meaning a part that ached or was contracted is now open or less achy. Or a physical manifestation can be an intention that you set. Once the focalizing process gets realized through your own body and your own subconscious, then whatever your intention was might physically manifest, whether that be a new job, a new apartment, a place to live, a partner, a resolution with a family member, whatever you were focalizing about, the physical manifestation comes as one of the ending effects of it. That can also be instantaneous. If you merge opposing energies and some pain in your knee gets relieved, that's an instantaneous physical manifestation. But if you do a focalizing session or you create an engagement with some negative energy about work, and 6 weeks later you get a new job or you get a promotion, that's also a physical manifestation. It just takes the universe a little longer to align with you and for your innate intelligence to align with the universe's desires or manifestation techniques or abilities. And once those alignments align, then you become more congruent. So the structure of focalizing, as I said, is those 9 pointed things. I want to talk about 4 today. One is intention. So once again, an intention is not want. Want in my work, I consider it a 4-letter word. Want and need are swear words as far as I'm concerned when I deal with a client. So setting an intention is accepting the existing reality and then saying, I'm allowing myself to shift towards what I am intending. So setting an intention is easiest if you use the shortest number of words. Try not to be too hyperbolic or extraneous with your words. Don't go into paragraphs or diatribes about all the wants and needs in your life. It's, I intend to resolve this issue. I intend, or I share the intention to, and then be as concise as you can be. And one thing I want to talk about that I've learned over the years that Michael didn't really talk about is try not to use polarizing or extraneous words. So try not to use all or nothing. I want nothing left of the pain I felt. Well, then you wouldn't remember what brought you to the realization of healing, right? So there's resolving pain and then there's trying to eradicate it. And if you eradicate it, then you're trying to bend a reality that already existed. So the intention gets convoluted. So the shortest amount of words and the cleanest intention you can set without using polarizing or extreme language. All or nothing, everything, never, things like that. That's basic intention setting 101. Not too many people talk about it from my perspective about the extraneous words or the polarizing words, but the universe does not like those. If I say I want to feel all the love in my body, then I would explode and I wouldn't be alive, and that's not really the optimal intention to set, right? So you could say, I want to displace the pain in my body and replace it with love. Okay, that's great. But I didn't say all the pain and all the love. It's just the optimal amount for you to feel, once again, back to that neutral position or parasympathetic in your nervous system. Suspension, I talked a little bit about this before. It really is suspending beliefs. It's suspending conditioned thinking, what judgments from yourself, from what you've heard about from others. This just came to me in the moment, but that's how these work. So this is one of Michael's suspension exercises, and I'd like to do it with everybody today. So let me just see you. I'm gonna have you close your eyes again. As I said, a lot of these are experiential. And today we're going to do a suspension experiment. So what I want you to do is, once again, evoke your childhood imagination. We're going to imagine you have a white, fluffy cloud right above your head. A big, white, fluffy cloud is right above your head. What I'm going to ask you to do is suspend any negative thoughts you might have, coworker, a family member, an issue with your building. Just suspend whatever might be happening in your brain, in your body, in your chest, and put it up in that white cloud. Almost some of your thoughts are like balloons and you let go of the helium and they float up into the white cloud. Good. Now, when you're ready, put your head up and blow the white cloud to one side of the room. Just gently let it cast itself over to a corner in the room. Just lightly blow the cloud away 5, 6, 7 feet into the corner. And we're just going to suspend whatever thoughts in that cloud there for the rest of the time together. And I even saw some yawns. So just knowing with your imagination, you've suspended those thoughts elsewhere. So you're not contending with them for the rest of the time being. And that is a prime example of suspension. Directly from the Dr. Picucci playbook. So if you want to touch your hand to your chest again, breathe in through your mouth. And then breathe in through your nose. And you don't have to look at the screen, but I put sensing up on the screen. If you're already in this conditioned state, just sense what's going on in your body now that you've suspended things. Sense what your shoulders feel like once you suspended things. Sense what your pelvis feels like. Give yourself permission to allow the subtle energy to present itself in your body. And that is what sensing is. And you may even sense that I'm holding space for you to receive this information. You may sense that my intention is to create that clarity and that healing. Yeah. For some of you, a smile's brewing. Let that smile come over your face. Good. Take a breath and come back into the room. Another big breath. And that, as I said, was suspending up in the clouds and then sensing what happened afterwards. 2 of the 9 points of focalizing. The next one I really enjoyed talking about that Michael also excelled at was engaging opposite energies. Now, I use these 2 green arrows to represent just opposing energies, but now imagine if those opposing energies were just using color as an example, that yellow and blue, in theory, make green, right? Yellow and blue make green. But when you focalize and you're using your insights and your innate intelligence, it doesn't have to follow standard protocols. Yellow and blue could make red or pink. Yellow and blue can make rainbow colors or purple even. So very often I have somebody saying, oh, I feel this color energy and this color energy. And when we mix them, whatever comes out is a whole new concept. It doesn't have to even relate to color. It can just be a felt sense or a subtle energy body. And that's one of the exercises that we're going to do near the end. Yeah.
I was wondering, can you give an example of that, or is it too difficult to give an example of?
Well, we're
Engage.
going to do one in a minute, but yeah, I would give you an example. You say, if I'm meeting with a client and we're doing a focalizing session and they say, oh, I have issues with my father. And you say, okay, what does that feel like in your body? And you go, oh, I feel this dark pit of energy in my stomach. Say, okay, go into that dark pit of energy in your stomach. And then I'll ask, what is the opposite of that? What color is it? Oh, it's dark and gloomy. What's the opposite of that? Blue sky. So then you bring the blue sky in, or sunshine, or whatever your subtle energy or your innate intelligence is going to tell you what the opposite is. And it really happens in the moment. If you've done work with me, I will ask quite specifically, okay, you're feeling frustration. What is the opposite of frustration? and you say clarity. And I say, okay, what color is clarity? And you say pink with white flowers on it. And you say, okay, bring that energy in to where you're feeling the frustration. Let them touch. And then as you let them touch, they create a new energy. It happens because you're allowing it to happen. You're not saying stay frustrated and stay loving. You're saying what would happen if I mixed these two together? Once again, those are polarizing energies. Those are opposing energies. The magic of focalizing is how when they come together and create something new. Does that help? Great. So tangible results of focalizing is it creates a sense of presence. It can create resilience. It allows people to connect the dots. And you might even notice your desires changing, whether that means, when I first started this work, I worked a lot with Michael, so we dealt a lot with the AA community and the healing communities around addiction and things like that. So when you focalize in your body, then maybe your desires change. And even if you have an addiction, that might shift out of an addiction mindset because you're feeling more resolve. And that can create a sense of unification. That unification could be in your own self and soul. That could be a unification in your family, or a disunification of family, meaning just because they're family doesn't mean that they're your coalescive glue that holds you together. Sometimes they can be the issues that you're having. And so if you unify with what means something to you, that can mean losing friends or dropping family off of your radar because you feel more unified without them. And it's a self-unification. Whether that's exemplified outwardly, that's for you to say, right? One of the most frustrating things Michael used to say to me is slow is fast. In focalizing, slow is fast. And so if you pay attention to those subtle energies, they're going to get you to, this is a marathon, not a sprint, and there's really no finish line. But as you said, if you go too fast, you're going to miss out on the subtle nuances that make life worth living. And you're going to pass by things and actually, by lack of discernment, judge them or misjudge them because you're going to miss out on what they truly meant. So if you're having a moment, internalize that moment. Try not to speed it up. Try not to force it in or out of you. Just perceive it and allow that perception to be the change. Yeah. So slow is fast. It's a mantra I now live by because I said it frustrated the heck out of me 20 years ago when I first heard it. Similarly to how does my body feel? And these are all tenets now that I try to live by. So back to the structure of focalizing. The one brilliant thing I really like about focalizing, and this is something that I used to help guide Michael with in helping him explain why it's so important and why, let me go back, why this 9-pointed star is not a line across the screen with 9 points that have to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I really want people to know that a linear line, look at these purple dots here, they have to go one and then the next one and the next one. And that's a linear viewpoint versus a dynamic viewpoint, or dynamic linking, as we call it in focalizing, is you can connect the 9 points of that star in a way that is dynamic. And if you create a central dynamic nuance where they all can be felt or experienced either as a whole or individually, not in any specific order, but as a part of the experience, then you're more easily connected to source energy. And that creates a link between the dynamic aspects of the 9 points of focalizing and how that calls forth or aligns you with source energy and makes you more congruent to the source energy that helps inform us. It helps inform your psyche. It helps inform your nervous system. It helps bring about a knowledge or an innate knowledge that generally, if we try to talk our way into it, we can't get there. We have to feel our way into a connection to source energy. Can't think of an aspect aside from maybe a meditative chant or something where you could just convince or talk yourself into connection to source energy. It really is a felt sense body drop, feeling your own subtle energy kind of connection. So before the last exercise, I'm teaching again next week. And as I said, next week, I will go over the other 5 points of focalizing that we didn't talk in depth today. And then we'll do an actual full body drop 9-point focalizing experience. And that's going to be next week. So what I would want to end with today is going back to this, the engaging opposite energies. And I'm going to put myself on the screen now because you know how this looks. Hi, everyone. So, engaging opposite energies. Let's take a breath. When you're ready, close your eyes. And doing a body drop, notice, is there any aspect in your body that's painful or achy or has a denseness? Some of you are my energy clients. You can find a chakra or a sore shoulder, or even a thought pattern that you find is locked somewhere in your body. And drop into that moment or drop into that area. And as you drop into that area, ask yourself, be questioning, be curious, and come up with a name for what you're experiencing. And now, point blank, I'm going to ask you, what is the opposite of that feeling you're feeling right now? Say it out loud. And now I'm going to ask you, what color is that? When you find the color, allow yourself and your innate intelligence to bring that color into the area in which you found in your body and engage the two energies. Curiously observe what happens to those two energies. Was there a third energy that came out? Are they conjoining like a lava lamp into something new? Is it staying in place or moving? And once again, you're all muted. Just in a few words, describe what you're sensing out loud. Good. Open your jaw like you've come through a tunnel. Might elicit a yawn. Noticing what new energies are created. Does that energy want to expand? Does it want to move in and around your body, informing you with new ways or new things? Curiously observe where the energy goes. Good. Take a breath. And once again, put your hand on your chest. And when you're ready, come in for a landing and come back into the room. Would anyone like to say a few words about their experience?
My opposite energy was like color of a creamsicle, which was very interesting because I'm not a huge creamsicle girl. So,
Okay.
and then as it joined the negative, the thing that I was working with, the opposite energy, some sort of shooting stars took off.
And that's why I try to use very basic. If you notice in the presentation I made, I used very basic imagery. I didn't want to plant many seeds in what the subconscious or your subconscious does. I like those noun project images of as basic as possible because it lets you fill in your version. It's not as important to hear my version of focalizing. It's your version of focalizing that's important. I'm really just the observer. Going back to that screen that I find really important and what I like about focalizing and why it is different from energy work is when I do focalizing or aspects of it with my clients, I'm not exerting any of my will or force into the process. I'm strictly observing it and allowing your tree to grow in the way it intends, right? My will for you shouldn't be the litmus test of healing. It should be what you desire, what your intention is. So for me to hold space for that as a focalizing practitioner, it means a lot. And it's a lot of why I think can do the work that I do, is it allows me to observe without commingling my empathy with people, right? I have enough psychic energy, focalizing, as I said, brought my intuition into focus. But I don't use my intuition for every client all the time because I have this focalizing resource. So it really can protect somebody as well as inform. Now, one thing I like about focalizing too is you can self-focalize. You can take what we did today and just make your own version of it in the shower while you're laying in bed at twilight, going in and out of sleep. Why does my hip hurt? Ask yourself, be curious, ask your body questions, let your body respond, and then communicate with your body effectively. And if that means realizing there's something negative or protruding or coagulated or dense in a bad way in your body, find the opposite of that, connect them, and see what happens. But as I said, a lot of times a negative energy combining with a positive energy. I remember once I did something with Michael and an ice cream cone came out, or something else, like some noun comes out, and you see that, and it means something to your inner child. It means something to your subconscious that maybe talk therapy would never have found because it's down stuck somewhere in your body, right? That's what I find really interesting about focalizing, and that there are stars and glitter and things like that that we feel in our bodies, that if we've never been introduced to this kind of work, which I certainly hadn't when I did it, I was used to going to a therapist and telling him my problems. Well, that just gave me more problems, frankly. So when I met Michael and he asked me how my body felt, I really felt seen for one of the first times in my life, and that made me super freaking uncomfortable, to the point that I didn't know what to do with that, but I trusted him enough to go back and go back. And once I understood the process, he was only trying to figure out a way for me to heal myself. And that's what focalizing can really hold space for, is either the person you're working with or your own. We call it innate intelligence. It's what your body genuinely already knows, that your psyche's been messing with you to circumvent or protect yourself from some childhood belief system that no longer applies. So yeah, engaging the opposite energies creates possibilities. Focalizing creates possibilities. And one of the things that Michael used to always stress that I enjoy is he talked about it as unfolding of a new future, or having a future unfold that is conducive to who you really are, not who you thought you should be. Because focalizing can really help eradicate that, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, all that superficial stuff. Focalizing can really get more profound in the body and help us understand ourselves better. So focalizing is not so easy to discuss or tell people about. It's a lot easier to understand it once you experience the process. Any questions?
The one thing I always asked Michael, and it was always confusing to me, the difference between focalizing and somatic experiencing. And I think that I get a sense that it's got to do with not only an emphasis on energy, but with somatic experiencing, it's focused on trauma, whereas focalizing is not. But I wonder if you have a different answer to that.
Well, somatic experiencing is a trademark protocol. There are other offshoots, focusing, somatic experiencing, other aspects of Jen Lin's work and Peter Levine's work, and all these sort of grandfather practitioners that created this somatic aspects of healing. So I can't answer your question because I don't know much about somatic experiencing and how it differs, but I do remember 20 years ago that I think Michael implementing more of the imaging and entering into more of the imagination. Somatic experiencing, yes, is trauma release based, Whereas focalizing, what I really enjoy focalizing for is my creative clients that want to express themselves more creatively. It really can diminish or reduce those blocks that we hold, which generally might not be trauma based. They
Mhm.
could just be self-assuredness based. They could be because you felt compelled to not show someone something. That's not a trauma as much as it's a retentive energy. And what I really enjoyed, the difference between focalizing and some of the other ones, it did allow for that sense of creativity and that inner artist and that inner child to go swing on the swings, to go skipping, to go draw that stick figure. That's where I believe they differed, is it's a more imaging imagination and it's more allowing of creativity, which to me as a healer is just as healing as healing a trauma. I've had just as good of results with clients that express their creativity that somehow heals a trauma just by the fact that you're allowing the creativity. So if you don't pinpoint it and pigeonhole it always in the negative, like always pulling yourself out of a doldrum, what focalizing can do is just bring you up from neutral to something more wonderful, not bring you out of a pit into neutrality. And so you can have those echelons or those plateaus that you can lift with focalizing. But to answer your question, I believe it's creativity and that the effect on the innate intelligence.
And the childhood imagination is fun, has more fun.
Definitely has more fun. And you work with me sometimes and we create a new experience just by engaging that childhood imagination. It's when you're less encumbered and it's where imagination and creation meet. Yeah. So I don't think we need a breakout room. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce out here